Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding exactly how the US government operates using a concept I absolutely love, the policy playbook. You know, if you've ever watched the news and just felt totally overwhelmed by how all these different government actions, debates, and global events fit together, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to map out the structural rules of the game so you can actually understand the mechanics behind all those crazy headlines. Okay, let's dive right into this. We've got a clear 5-step playbook that's going to tightly organize our whole analysis today. First, we'll look at home versus away policies. Second, we'll uncover the national interest. Third, we'll examine exactly who holds the power. Fourth, we'll open up the diplomatic toolkit. And finally, in step 5, we're going to look at blurring the lines. Section 1, Home versus Away Policies. Setting the stage. To really grasp government strategy, it helps to think of every single action as a specific play, divided into home games and away games. To get our gears turning here, let me pose a question directly to you. What is the fundamental difference between a tax law and a peace treaty? Take a second and really think about the mechanics of that. I mean, they're both major actions taken by the federal government, and they both require huge amounts of debate and resources. But they're targeted at completely different spheres of reality. And that brings us right to our core definitions. Domestic policy is the home game. These are the nation's plans for making rules and laws that directly affect people inside the United States. On the flip side, we have foreign policy, which is the away game. This dictates exactly how the United States interacts with other countries on the global stage. Literally, every policy falls somewhere into this framework.
Let's ground this with some concrete examples, right? When we look at domestic policy, we're talking about issues like healthcare, taxes, managing Social Security, protecting civil rights, border security measures, funding public education, and working to prevent domestic terrorism. The ultimate aim of all these domestic plays is to improve society, protect our safety, and help the people living right here within the United States.
Section 2, the national interest. The guiding star. So, the crucial point is, now that we understand the basic difference between home and away policies, we've got to look at the why behind international actions. The absolute guiding star is the national interest. This is simply defined as what is good for the nation and its people. Before any overseas action is taken, leaders have to ask themselves if it ultimately serves this fundamental national interest. But what does the national interest actually look like in practice? Well, on the world stage, the goals of U.S. foreign policy include protecting U.S. security above all else. From there, it extends to protecting American citizens, property, and investments abroad. It involves encouraging other countries to trade with the U.S., spreading the American system of democracy and free enterprise, promoting international peace and stability, and finally making humanitarian efforts to provide economic assistance to developing countries. Section 3. Who holds the power? Checks and balances. Now, what's really interesting about this is how power is carefully divided. Executing that massive global agenda requires head coaches calling the plays, but notice the clean division of labor here. On the one hand, the president appoints ambassadors, acts as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and negotiates treaties. But jump over to the other side. Congress must actually confirm those presidential appointments. The president leads the military, sure, but only Congress can officially declare war. The president negotiates a treaty, but the Senate has to ratify it with a strict 2/3 vote. And perhaps most importantly, Congress holds the purse strings. They approve the federal funding for defense, foreign aid, and the State Department. Neither branch can run a play without the other's involvement. Section 4, the diplomatic toolkit. Executing away games. So we know the goals and we know who holds the power. But what specific tools are used to execute these away games on a daily basis? The primary engine for all of this is the Department of State. This is an institution with deep roots established way back in 1781 when it was originally named the Department of Foreign Affairs. Its modern mission statement is incredibly clear: to create a more secure, democratic, and prosperous world for the benefit of the American people and the international community. And the Secretary of State acts as the head of this department, serving as the lead executive executing these really complex diplomatic plays.
Let's crack open that toolkit. How do we actually solve international crises before they escalate to outright war? Well, we use diplomacy. First up, we have ambassadors and embassies. Ambassadors are the official representatives sent to other countries, and the embassy is their official office and staff. Next, we rely on alliances, which are relationships where friendly nations officially agree to work together. Then we have treaties, those highly official agreements between countries that, as we just saw, have to be ratified by the Senate. Finally, we have doctrine, which are broad statements of government policy in international relations. Getting a solid grip on this vocabulary gives you the anchor you need to decode global events.
Section 5, blurring the lines when home meets away. And this brilliantly illustrates our final point. Up until now, we've created a really neat separation between home games and away games. But the reality? That hard line is actually an illusion. Take a close look at this poster from 1947, right at the dawn of the Cold War. It literally reads, "Is this tomorrow? America under communism." Well, the source material categorizes this as propaganda or entertainment. Look at its function. It perfectly demonstrates how a foreign policy issue, the international spread of communism, creates a massive, palpable domestic reaction. An away game conflict was driving immense internal domestic fear and shaping public opinion right at home. Let's analyze this with a specific case study from our source material. Consider this historically grounded scenario. The U.S. government mandates a military draft to fight communism in Vietnam. I want you to think about the mechanics happening in just that single sentence. Notice how incredibly intertwined these policies become. On the one side, you have the foreign policy action. The government is fighting an opposing force abroad, acting on that core goal of protecting national security and the national interest. But look at the domestic impact on the other side. To execute that away game, the government must draw heavily from the home game. They have to mandate a draft, redirect huge amounts of domestic tax funding to the war effort, and deal with massive internal public protests. The internal domestic pressure from citizens can entirely change the trajectory of a country's foreign policy. You just cannot separate the two. Which brings us to our wrap-up. I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. The next time you open up a news app or turn on the TV, pick a major headline and apply this playbook. Ask yourself, is the issue you're reading about purely domestic? Is it purely foreign? Or is it a messy, complicated combination of both? Once you start looking at the world through the lens of the policy playbook, you're going to see these connections everywhere. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep asking those great questions, and I will see you in the next explainer.